Callisto Protocol is one of those games that could have been great. Unfortunately, it fails to capture the imaginations of gamers, and the story has a lot to do with it. The team that created Dead Space is, for the most part, responsible for the creation of Callisto Protocol. Dead Space has spawned multiple games, some in VR, comic books, toys, and animated films. Will Callisto Protocol get the same treatment? Not likely. And there are a number of reasons for this, one of them being the sales figures for the game, which are not that great, and the botched release. We're not going to get into the gameplay mechanics or the horrific PC release. I'm going to analyze, judge, and react to this game's story only. I am a writer by trade. That is my competency. So let's get started. To summarize the game's story as quickly as possible, the main protagonist is a smuggler flying around these planets transporting suspicious cargo that has led to disastrous consequences. His spaceship is boarded by terrorists, causing it to crash on the moon, Callisto, which is a prison colony. An infection breaks out, causing all sorts of mayhem, and the protagonist Jacob and his motley crew of deplorables need to escape. That's basically it. The premise doesn't really blow wind up my skirt. So what does the story get wrong? Well, quite a lot. Let's begin with the characters. They're all so overwhelmingly boring and not dynamic at all, with the exception of Jacob, who sees the error of his ways and performs a handful of heroic acts because he's lamenting the death of his partner and smoldering with self-loathing over the deaths of people from other colonies who've become infected with a deadly pathogen that he helped to spread. Jacob as a character in the game or in the context of the story is okay. We don't hate him, which is good. We actually sympathize with him when he's being brutalized by the prison guards. I believe it's fair to say that sensible people are rooting for the hero and want him to prevail. Unfortunately, I can't say much else that is positive about this character. I want to make clear that the flaws for Jacob's character have nothing to do with the character himself, but the boring and flat writing. Here's what's wrong. Jacob isn't dynamic enough. Pulling off a few heroic stunts isn't enough to make this character memorable, the way Isaac from Dead Space is, or the Master Chief from Halo. Those guys also have less dialogue, by the way. The boring writing makes Jacob's interactions with the other characters very robotic, flat, and uninteresting. I just didn't find myself caring about any of the characters besides Jacob. However, there was one character that could have changed the game had the story been written properly. That would be Elias. The character was rather interesting. He had a backstory, he had a mission, he took risks, and he put his faith in Jacob, making Jacob more likable merely because someone in the game wasn't trying to kill him. These two needed each other. Jacob was pretending to be innocent of any wrongdoing, and Elias had severe remorse for his crimes, so already we got an interesting contrast between these two characters. Both were determined to get off Callisto no matter what. They each placed immense faith in each other. Elias didn't know Jacob, or why he was really in prison, and Jacob knows that Elias is a violent, dangerous criminal who clearly deserved to have been placed behind bars. Yet they move forward because the threat of brutal annihilation at the hands of the deadly pathogen is much worse than anything the two could do to each other, really. So what does the game's story get wrong here? They kill off Elias. They kill off the character that actually makes Jacob's predicament interesting. Elias added suspense, made Jacob likable, expanded the lore around humanity in space, and he just died too quickly because reasons. This was a huge mistake. He clearly added much color to a story that was largely lifeless. And that's important. Let's get into Dani really quick. She isn't dynamic at all. The whole time she's fueled by a desire to enact revenge on the person responsible for spreading the deadly pathogen that resulted in the deaths of her family. I don't know what else to say about Dani. She's boring, flat, and just about as lifeless as outer space. The antagonists are also boring, hitting the same "I'm a bad guy" notes that we see in other games or films that put zero effort into making their villains interesting. The warden is obsessed with controlling evolution. Where have we seen that before? And his lapdog prison guard follows Jacob around the entire facility. And then the entire time just trying to, he's just trying to take him out. And that's basically it. Okay, great. So if I was writing the story and it was going to be adapted to a game or film, here's how I'd play it out. These are the changes that I would make that would significantly improve this and make it a lot more memorable. Here's how it goes. Jacob is on his ship. It gets boarded by Dani and her band of terrorists. It crashes. Everyone ends up getting locked up, and then all hell breaks loose. The infection wreaks havoc across the prison colony. Elias early on clicks up with Jacob, and they work together to escape. Danny and a small handful of her terrorist pals also escape and end up pursuing Jacob, essentially making her like a boss, like a villain that you'll later encounter in the game. So she ends up pursuing Jacob along with plotting to take out the warden. At some point, Jacob would have to divulge to Elias why he's on Callisto and explain that he was being paid lots of money to smuggle certain mysterious cargo all throughout the space colonies. But his employer was the warden. It was his cargo, so he doesn't know why he's in prison. When he works for him, Jacob knew he was shipping suspicious cargo under the radar and took risks that resulted in Max's death. Max is the partner from the beginning of the game. He ends up dying upon impact on the surface of Callisto. Jacob expresses his pain, and Elias also comes clean with his crimes and displays severe remorse. And at some point, Danny and Jacob confront each other, and there's like some kind of battle between the genuine prisoners, Danny and the surviving terrorist bros. After the fight, they come to their senses because the real threat is the warden and his super jacked prison guard. And they progress to the warden's living quarters and defeat him, making Danny a quasi-villain / protagonist. That would have made the game way more interesting, up the drama from a 4 to like an 8. This would have made Jacob's sacrifice at the end of the story more meaningful. He was careless with Max's life, and he's responsible for the pain and suffering in Danny's life, so he allows Danny and Elias to leave, and he stays behind to fight. I'd also would have had Jacob get infected with the deadly pathogen instead of Danny. I'd have this event create a rift between Jacob and Elias. Jacob would pursue finding a cure, and Elias would go his separate way, trying to find a way to escape Callisto. Having Jacob alone again would allow him to introduce other characters like Dr. Caitlin Mahler. Also, what the hell is the deal with these guys on the screen? Who are they? What do they want? Where are they from? Are they even human? If the warden is in league with these guys, how come he's still human and they're not? Doesn't make a lot of sense. There's no attempt to get to the bottom of any of this, which is a missed opportunity to add flavor to the story that leaves no flavor in your mouth. Had I written Callisto Protocol, I would have hyper-focused on getting the characters right, bringing to life the drama and trauma surrounding the characters, and exploring the world of Callisto Protocol through Elias, Danny, the Warden, and those weird-ass golden bitches on the screen. It's important to get the story right, because space is pretty lifeless and boring. Spacecrafts, prison colonies, or corridors of large structures in space are pretty similar, so to break up the monotony of the scenery, it is imperative that the writers get the characters, conflicts, drama, and the world building right. What do you guys think of this story? Did Callisto Protocol, blow wind up your skirt? Did you enjoy it? Did you have fun playing this game? Was it spooky? Were you bored? Let me know what you think. Thank you for watching. I sincerely appreciate it.